What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Swing for the Fences MLB show here on Sunday morning, bright and early here in the Denver streets for me and Mr. Mangone. 9 a.m. Not going to lie, Mangone, it's a little rough on, post best UFC card ever on Saturday night, and we're here Sunday morning. But, we got the coffee, we got the water, we're rehydrating. And I got to say, I do really like this slate. So I'm firing MME, both DraftKings and FanDuel, hoping to get to the top of the leaderboards. You're a notorious UFC hater, Mango. Did you watch the card last night? I hope so. It was pretty spectacular. Did you get the chance to see the fights last night?
I did. I purchased the card and I even bought it, DC. But here's the thing. I'm not a UFC hater. I'm a UFC DFS hater. There's a difference.
No, same thing, man. Same thing.
No, it's different. It's different. I'm sorry. It's different. But it was really good. I enjoyed it for sure. I had people over, right? So I bought the card. We watched it. We all had a good time. I only placed 3 bets. I held the restraint, and I made sure to only pick 3 that I liked, and all 3 won. So that was great. Won a little parlay. So got an extra pocket. I got extra money in the pockets to fire in some MLB today. So I'm excited for this MLB slate too. I'm just like you. I looked at it and I kept going through each game, and I was like, there's some good pitchers all up and down the board. It's going to be a pretty fun slate. So I'm excited for that. We got NASCAR. It'll be a little bit later on. And of course we got the Masters, right? We get to close that out. And I got some decent teams at the top. I will say I had one team yesterday, and I just opened up my phone and I was winning a bunch of money. And I was like, why am I winning? And I was like, well, Scotty's in like 5th place. And now Scotty's back in 1st. So I think I need Scotty to collapse to have like an actual shot at some serious cash. But I don't know if that's happening. We'll see. Obviously, the Masters is going to be a lot of fun. And I got Bryson to win too. I've been rooting for Bryson. He's one of my favorite golfers. So I'm pretty excited for the Masters today.
Yeah, I did 150 in the big $5 100K up top. And I'm cashing like 95 out of 150 teams, nice. Which is obviously nice. Full scented on Scheffler, so we're rooting for opposite things. I got one team that's in like 70th that has.
Oh, so you're in good shape. You're in 70th. That's awesome.
Yeah, an outside shot. I mean, obviously, it needs everything to go right, but do have a chance to get to the top. So that'll be fun to watch the Masters, and it was a good UFC card for me as well. Outside of, I tweeted about this for people that saw it. So my favorite fighter in the UFC is Max Holloway. And I had a bunch of I do like round robin, right? So I picked kind of my favorite bet for each fight. And it was a good card. I had a very good night, especially with the Pereira win. But I had Max Holloway to win by decision at plus 250 on all these different bets. Like literally hundreds of different bets. And I mean, anyone that watched the fight, I mean, he was like, I don't know, 99.5% to win that fight by decision with 10 seconds to go, 5 seconds to go. And he gets the goddamn buzzer-beating walk-off knockout, which, like, Holloway doesn't get very many KOs anyway.
Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen, like, the walk-off like that? Because I figured it's never happened.
I mean, nothing like that. Nothing where, just, like, I mean, he knocked him out just stone cold. Like, it was so close that I almost thought that they were gonna, have to go to the cards because the ref couldn't get in there to stop it before the buzzer sounded, which would have been crazy. But I mean, it was kind of painful, just right because that's like my favorite fighter. He was an underdog on the card, and it's like if I just would have just bet him to win, I would have had. I mean, it was costing, I don't know, $10,000 or something crazy like.
Yeah, I said to my friends, they're not like big bettors or anything, right? They're just kind of learning a little bit about it. And I was like, if you had Max to you're basically your bet, you know what I mean? I was like, you're pretty pissed. And then I opened up Twitter and saw your tweet and I was laughing. I was like, oh, geez, that's got to be a terrible beat.
But I was on it. And so I was tilting and drinking, obviously. So then I just kind of full scented on Alex Pereira on the last fight of the night, and
there you go.
Got some of those winnings back. So
yeah, I could tell you had drinks in your DC when I saw your BMF women's belt tweet. I was like, all right, DC's getting after it today.
They didn't get that much love, but it was a good tweet. So some of the best tweets, they fly under the radar, and they only get a few likes. But hey, I always say, I'm mostly tweeting for myself, like what I think is funny. So, if other people think it's funny, that's cool. If not, I'm still laughing at my own jokes, and so it's all good. All right, we do got an 11-game slate here that I do really like for MLB, so let's get into it. I think it's going to be a good day in the MLB streets. Got some good pitchers going. I think some really interesting stacks, and of course, we'll do what we always do on this show. We will go game by game, break down all the pitchers' stacks. At the end, we'll do home run calls, play of the days, most important pitchers, favorite stacks, everything that you guys need to hopefully get to the top of the leaderboards. We do start out our first game of the night or day, I guess, is Brewers and Orioles. 8.5 total here. We have Corbin Burnes on the mound for the Orioles. With all the pitching injuries going on this year, there's a lot of the aces. They've kind of gone by the wayside. So Burnes is one of the guys who's kind of one of the last ones standing. He's pitched 3 times this year. Outstanding in 2 of the 3, and then was just okay against Kansas City. But he looks like vintage Corbin Burnes right now. He's had times last year when he was a little bit up and down, a little bit shaky. I think to start the year last year, finished strong, but we have seen him. I think back in 2022, maybe 2021. I mean, one of the very, very best pitchers in baseball. I think that's safe to say about Corbin Burnes right now. I will say, this Milwaukee lineup is no joke. If you look at the numbers they're putting up against lefties, even without what's his name, Christian Yelich out of the lineup today, they've got some of the best numbers in baseball against right-handed pitchers. Low strikeout, or relatively low strikeout rate. I do look at this lineup though; it is watered down. No Yelich, no Oliver Dunn, who I think is a good good batter against right-handed pitchers. They got Gary Sanchez. That feels like free strikeouts for Corbin Burnes. Looking at this Brewers lineup, I do feel better about Burnes kind of than I did coming in. He was still going to be on my radar, but I feel pretty good about him with this lineup that the Brewers are rolling out there. And then on the other side, Camporeale is very, very bad. I know his results so far have been good. I wouldn't read really anything into that. Look at last year's stats. Gave up 2.5 home runs per 9 to left-handed hitters rather. And we have extremely good hitting conditions in Baltimore. 75, 80 degrees, winds blowing out straight to center field. And this is one of those parks, man, you got to pay attention to righty-lefties because it's a good park for left-handed power and a terrible park for right-handed power. So I'm looking at these Orioles lefties at the top of the lineup and, frankly, even at the bottom of the lineup as very, very strong plays against Camporeale. I'll say it right now. This won't change throughout the show. Orioles, my number 1 stack with a bullet today. So I'll be very heavily invested in this first game of the day. Over to you, Mangone. Orioles and Brewers.
Yeah, so Corbin Burnes is great. I will just say it's a really good pitching slate. I know you talked about how Corbin Burnes is one of the aces left. Don't disrespect Zach Wheeler like that. Zach Wheeler pitches today.
He's like the other one still standing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're not wrong, but it's definitely. I just think there's the one issue I have with this is I hate picking on a team that's hot, right? I hate it. This Brewers team is hot, right? Just to plain and simple say it. Look at the numbers they've been putting up. 12 runs, 8, 9, 7, and then 11 the past 2 days. Yes, they had the postponement against Cincinnati, but they are putting up 8 or more runs in the past week, basically, in every single game. I'm not saying Corbin Burnes isn't the guy that can stop it, because he is the guy, right? If you had to pick someone to just end the streak, he would be the option. But I don't know if I want to pick on him as much today. It's one of those things. He's going to be chalky, and my take on it is I definitely want to be I don't want to be overweight where I have 80% or something like that. I just don't think that's right.
So I was with you. I have run my 150 on both DraftKings and FanDuel, kind of my initial build before the show. And I was under the field on Corbin Burnes. I think he's projected around, I don't know what, 30%, 35%, something like that on DraftKings, maybe 25 on FanDuel. I was planning to come in under those numbers. The line that the Brewers have put out is changing that for me a little bit. I mean, this is essentially the worst lineup that they could have out there, I think.
Okay. I mean, that matters on Sundays, right? One thing that we've joked about on these shows since we're on them a bunch together, you're going to get some really bad lineups someday that you're not expecting. It could change your thoughts for sure.
You know, they got the double catcher lineup. They got Joey Weimer in there, who's a strikeout machine at the bottom. No Christian Yelich, who's their best hitter, especially against right-handed pitching. So, yeah, I'm back in on Corbin Burns, and at this point, yeah, this lineup is enough for me to kind of change my tune and probably flip and probably go over the field. Not crazy, like you said. I'm not playing 80% Corbin Burns. There's just too many good pitchers on this slate, but I'm gonna have much more Corbin Burns than my initial build had in there.
Yeah, I'm fine with, if you want to be overweight, I'm fine with that. I don't want it to eat into too much exposure elsewhere. Like a great example yesterday was like when I first saw yesterday's slate, I had the same core as you. I had Chris Sale and I had Crochet. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, how am I not playing Lodolo at like 5% against the White Sox? And I ended up switching it and I cored him up, and that worked out really well. And it was because I looked at the slate deeper and I was just like, when you have slates like this where there's one clear chalk pitcher, and there's two today, it's Wheeler and Burns. Everyone's going to go to Wheeler and Burns. But there's other really good ones that you can take advantage of at low ownership. I just don't want to ignore that, where I'm like, let's say Burns is going to be 35% today. If he's 35%, I'm either going to be a little bit under, middle, or overweight. I know it's not like the greatest take in the world, but I just think that's how you're supposed to play these slates. I feel very confident in that. So I want to make sure I'm overweight on some of these other really good pitchers, not just using all of my ownership allocated just to Burns. So, but Burns is a good play, obviously. I agree with you on Baltimore. I think we got to be considering Baltimore. There's been a lot of good hitting spots lately with a lot of wind blowing out. We got that situation similar, but definitely target those lefties. Cowser's a pretty good value. You got Cedric Mullins. I know Jackson Holliday's been struggling. If you want him as a value play, you could easily get there. Gunnar Henderson, Rushman. I mean, listen, Baltimore helped me win that live final seed. I'm definitely in on Baltimore. I know you talked about it with Steve. They're like a wagon, right? You said they're going to be like kind of like the new Braves. I don't totally disagree that there are some correlation there with that. And when you say they're going to be like the new Braves, you're basically saying, dude, you can stack the 1 through 9 with confidence on almost every single slate. And that lineup's just going to keep getting better. Like when we hit July, man, that lineup, as long as no one gets hurt, it's going to look and feel loaded, especially with these young guys just learning how to play a little bit better in the majors.
Yeah, Cowser down there in the 6 hole, absolutely on fire. I think he's one of the best values overall in the slate. Don't overlook him just because he's hitting a little lower in the order. Jackson Holliday, I know it's been a slow start for him. I still think he's a good play at 3,800. And then the top, yeah, I'm going to be lower on the right-handed bats, Mountcastle and Westberg, but there's only 2. And even those guys are still fine plays. So give me all the Orioles. I mean, you're an MME guy too, Mangone. I think on most slates. How high are you willing to go on a stack percentage on let's say I'm very convicted on Baltimore, right? I really do think they are the best stack. They would be my odds-on favorite by far to put up the most runs today. How heavy are you willing to go on a stack like that?
Yeah, you and I are definitely different. You definitely are like you'll put like lock button on a whole team. Like I can't do that. Like,
I have like 65% Baltimore stack, so that's what I'm planning to do.
For me, I spread it around.
So you can still. So I play in 3 uniques, right? So you can still get like those lineups are still different from each other as long as you get the uniques in there. So I don't see why that's a problem to do.
I don't disagree with it. It's all about risk tolerance. And for me personally, like I like to play. I'm playing more like the long game that it's just going to hit over time, and you lose less money each day because of that. And but to be fair, like I have less bullets up top. Like when it hits, listen, like when your strategy hits, like if you stack the 65% Baltimore, and if Baltimore puts up 10 plus runs, like it's
what really sucks when that happens and you still don't get first place.
Yeah, see that happens more than you think. Like it's like so.
I've had a bunch of close calls on FanDuel. I've got like 4 top 10s in that $9.
Yeah,
so it's like
like yesterday I had a team. Like I don't know if you remember the slate yesterday, but it was really spaced out, and it felt like early, like you needed Pete Alonso and you just needed like all these good plays. But I had a team yesterday. It had like the nuts pitching. I think it was Gore and Lodolo, and then it had a Boston stack later on. And like I was like, I don't even think I can like have a shot. And then like I had like 40 innings remaining, and I was in like 100th place. And I was like, this team actually might have some legs. I should like be watching this one. So that's why I am just more so in the camp of spreading it out. I want to make sure that I'm overweight on, like, my strategy in general is whatever offense is the, like, quote unquote chalk offense of the day. Like, it's been the Blue Jays a lot lately. I just go way under the field, and sometimes I fade her. And there's some offenses I just refuse to play right now. Like, I refuse to play, like, the Cardinals is one of them. I know they've had a couple good slates here and there, but there's certain teams I just lower their exposure because I want to get overweight on these teams that are just getting overlooked. Like, I think I wouldn't mind that strategy you're talking about on a shorter slate. I know shorter slates, I've increased it up to like 40% stacks, but for me, I'm typically like in that 20% range. And I know it's different than you, but my key and my strategy in DFS baseball is whatever the top tier team is, I understand why they're a top tier team. I just want to be a little bit lower on them and get higher on those teams that are in that second tier. I just think it's like too important for sure.
Yeah, you prefer to build your lineups with the condoms on. Yeah, I understand. It's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kevin asks a good number of uniques to run on Saber for 20 max. I'm a 3 unique guy, unless we're talking a short slate. I think the 3 unique allows, like you can get your same stack in there if there's a stack you really want with 3 different one-off, right? You can get different 4-3-1 type of builds. And I did ask Bryce, Third and Schlong, who's obviously an incredible DFS player, what he did, and he was very quick to put up 3 as like it was kind of like a snap call from him, right? Which makes me think that is probably indeed the correct way to go. Any thoughts there?
I do 3. I also like Steve on one of the shows. He said he basically runs like 5 different teams for his 20 max, right? To be able to get exposure. I like that when he said that. And another thing you can do that I don't totally mind is like if you're running your teams and like let's say Ronald Acuna, you're getting 80% of, but you only have like 40% Brave stacks, well, you're going to get Acuna a ton as one-offs then. And like my personal strategy is like, I like Acuna, but I want to make sure I'm getting 5% Aaron Judge or 5% Juan Soto, right? So I would set a max on some of the top end guys. That's what I personally do, just because I want to make sure I'm not just getting 90% Yordan Alvarez. I want to make sure I'm getting some of these guys like Mike Trout when he hits 2 home runs at no ownership, or Pete Alonso who's been mashing. I want to make sure I'm getting those low-owned like big bats allocated throughout my lineups. I think it's important for sure. It's one thing I don't mind when you do your 20 max. Scan down and look at those guys. And let's say you're not getting enough of them, you feel like, then just up their projections a little bit and kind of go from there. Because I think it matters for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I agree with you. The big home run hitters, especially on DraftKings, you want exposure to almost all of them, right? Outside of just like the truly horrific matchups or something like that, or bad weather. But yeah, you want the big boppers. So that's Baltimore, Milwaukee, and a lot of strategy talk. But hey, that's good. It's Sunday morning, and we'll be, or at least I'll be hoping Baltimore puts up some serious runs today. I'll be on the Corbin Burns train as well. All right, let's get to the next game on the slate. Los Angeles Angels and Boston Red Sox. This one in Fenway, of course. Could be some precipitation. I don't think this game is really of concern at all in terms of postponement. We have Brian Bayo on the hill for Boston. He's been, I don't know, the definition of mediocre so far. 11.7, 11.7, and 12.4 fantasy points in his 3 starts. Really hasn't got the strikeouts rolling either. And he's kind of the one Red Sox pitcher who's kind of lagging behind a little bit of the others who have generally pitched pretty well. He'll go up against this Angels team. Runs expected in this game, a 9.5 total. Boston sitting around minus 130. We just talked about Mike Trout. He's on fire. I think he's a good play right now. Like literally every slate, because nobody wants to stack the Angels. So Mike Trout just comes in lower owned than he should essentially every slate there is. I do think the Angels will get some love here, though. They do have a reasonable team total. Obviously, a good place to hit in Fenway. And, yeah, they're coming alive a little bit. Taylor Ward's look fine. Good to get Luis Rengifo in the lineup. Got an upside play at Joe Adell down there at the bottom. And then the Red Sox, I think, are going to be popular against Tyler Anderson. Anderson, not necessarily he's been good DFS-wise too, but the strikeouts haven't necessarily been there. But 7, he's pitched 14 scoreless innings so far this year. Hasn't given up an earned run yet. Got through 7 innings, both of those starts. and I mean, has obviously been awesome against Tampa Bay and Miami. So 2 pretty good matchups. This isn't that bad of a matchup, though, against this Red Sox team, missing obviously Trevor Story down. Rafael Devers is out. There's a lot of strikeouts to be had against this Red Sox team. Anderson, he's 7K on DraftKings. He's 9K on FanDuel. I don't know. I might have a little sprinkling of Mr. Anderson here. He's going to be very low owned, and he's pitched well, and I don't hate this matchup, honestly, for him. I know the market certainly disagrees with me with the big team total on the Red Sox, but I'm interested in Anderson, less so in Bayo, which isn't something I anticipated saying at the start of the season, but that is where I sit today. What about you, man, going Red Sox and Angels?
No, I actually don't disagree with you. Henderson is lefty, and right, the Red Sox have been really bad against lefties this year.
They got like a 31% strikeout rate, and that's with Devers in that lineup, obviously most days.
Yeah, to be fair, like if you had a Tyler O'Neill, like Bobby Dahlbach mini stack, would I say that's dumb? No, I don't think that's dumb.
I mean, I don't think stacking against Anderson's dumb at all, but
correct. It's one of those, like, you can make the argument for both sides for sure, because the upside with Anderson, especially the price at 7K. And hey, the wind's blowing out in Boston. It's a pretty good team total. It sounds like it's one of those spots where we're obviously not going to disagree with Vegas completely, but we're also going to say, hey, we kind of know some of the trends we're seeing early on in the season with this Boston Red Sox team, and we want to take advantage of it while we think we can. So I like Anderson. I don't mind the Red Sox side and even the Angels side. But one argument I make against the Angels is, like, DC, you said it at the top, they're gaining ownership today. And, like, this is one of those offenses I was mentioning. Like, teams that are gaining ownership that I just think are getting overowned, I want to be lower on. And I think I want to be lower on the Angels. Again, 11-game slate, a lot of good games that we're going to talk about. And I think the Angels are one of those teams I'm going to be lower on today than the field. And I understand, yeah, they could have big games and put up 10 runs. I know the wind's blowing out. There's a lot of other good spots that we're going to talk about. Obviously, it's a good game, but there's other games I want to be well overweight on in my MME stuff today.
Yeah, Alex says, I assume EH stands for extreme hitters on behind the plate for Red Sox Angels. Yeah, Alex, we appreciate you watching every day, by the way. And yeah, I think that's important information, especially for a guy like Anderson who doesn't really have good stuff at all, right? Does rely on location, getting called strikes. So yeah, that will have me a little bit lower on Anderson than I planned. Not that I was going crazy with him, and just a sprinkling, which I will still keep some shares. But you're right about the ownership on these two teams, man. I mean, I'm seeing the Angels like 10% plus, maybe pretty much all the way through their lineup. And then the Red Sox, I think even higher than that. 10% plus for most of the guys at the top of their lineup as well. So I'm with you. I'll be kind of hoping this game doesn't go crazy. Definitely like Baltimore way more than both these teams. And I think Baltimore will be lower owned than both the Angels and the Red Sox, which to me seems a little crazy when you look at just the relative strength of the three lineups. And I think Baltimore has the better matchup as well. So it's just the park, right? And maybe the umpire.
It's the park, it's the weather, and it's the pricing, right? So when you look at these guys, there's a lot of good values throughout the lineup. You get Pablo Reyes at 3K in the 2-hole. I mean, you get Bobby Dahlbach in the 5-hole at 2.8. You get Rendon 3.4 up at the top. Rengifo 3.7. Taylor Ward at 4.4 is definitely not bad. You got good values up and down the lineup. That's the reason why, for sure. And even like Yoshida is, I mean, dude, he's 3.7K. Like, that feels cheap for him. I know it's lefty, but I'm just saying it feels cheap for him when we paid 5K for him in the past. So it's just because they're so cheap. And the two pitchers we want today are Wheeler and Burns, or at least the optimal way to build is Wheeler and Burns. That's the most common combination you'll find today.
Yeah, Tyler O'Neill, good play on every slate right now with the way he's swinging, especially against lefty and Fenway. Absolutely love O'Neill. If you're playing, even one lineup, he's a good one-off. But if you're playing a lot, I would make sure to get some exposure to Tyler O'Neill, even if you're not on the Red Sox in general. Do think he's a fantastic play today for sure. All right, let's get to the next game on the slate. It is Pittsburgh and Philly, and kind of a common theme today, man. Going a lot of good hitting weather. Warm throughout the country, winds blowing out in seemingly every game. This one, 70 degrees right now in Philly, 15 to 20 mile per hour winds straight out to right center field. We've got Zach Wheeler on the mound against the Pirates, and Pirates have shown some life this year, so I don't think it's a complete, can't miss spot for Wheeler. Kind of like the Burns thing against Milwaukee. Tougher spots than we would have maybe thought at the beginning of the year, but still, Wheeler has been awesome so far, and really no reason to think he's going to slow down. He's a fantastic pitcher. He's going to give you length almost every game, 6, and 7 innings so far this year. Got up to 107 pitches in that last outing against St. Louis, so he's clearly feeling good. They're willing to let him go, and yeah, I think he's got a good chance to go 7+ again today. Wheeler, I think probably the safest pitcher on the board. I think Burns is a little riskier than Wheeler. So yeah, Wheeler's an awesome play if you can fit him in. I think you'll be pretty happy with the results at the end of the slate. And then Mitch Keller going for the Pirates. He's been kind of mediocre, Mitch Keller-ish. He's had some good matchups too. He's faced Detroit, the Nationals, and the Marlins. So pretty soft schedule for Keller. And I like these Phillies lefties, man. Schwarber, Bryce Harper with that wind blowing out to right center field, I think are awesome plays. You can go to other guys in this lineup too. Brandon Marsh. I do particularly like the lefties against Keller, but yeah, this Phillies team I think has potential to put up some serious runs. You can also steal bases against Mitch Keller, which is a bump to Turner, Harper to some extent. Real Moto can run. Marsh can run. Stott, Rojas. This Phillies team has a lot of upside. I don't like them quite as much as the Orioles, but I want to get exposure to this Phillies team. Where do you stand on Phillies and Pirates, man? Go.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget Brandon Marsh. He's been crushing the ball lately.
Yeah.
You got Camporeale-USA in the 7 hole and Stott in the 8 hole. Like, this lineup is
There's
really
another one like the Orioles. You can play 1 through 9 here, I think.
Agreed. And I mean, I like the Phillies like so far on this slate, right? They're my top offense right now. Obviously, when we get to the end, we'll go through stacks. But at this time, so we've got the 3 games. I love this Phillies offense. Up and down 1 through 9. Got great one-offs that can easily crush it. You can see 2 home run games for so many guys on this slate that could just win it for you. It's like I said, you don't want to just have 80% Ronald Acuna. I want to get some exposure to Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and all these.
We're gonna see a lot of home runs on this slate. I think
Correct.
You're gonna need a big score, like no question about it.
Agree 1,000%. And honestly, because of that, like just talking lineup construction, like if everyone's playing Wheeler and Burns, we're gonna have to find some cheap pitchers. Like we're gonna have to take some stabs on it. At least I am, because I'm gonna definitely pay for some big bats. I'm gonna try to flip the build a little bit today for sure. So
yeah,
that's something I'm definitely considering doing. And if I'm flipping the build, the Phillies is a great way to do it. So I absolutely love them. Pirates, I mean, not so much. So one thing I'll at least say, if you're not high on Wheeler, if you're looking for reasons to, at least this Pirates lineup isn't bad today, right? Like you got Sawinski in the 6 hole and Triola's in the 7. Like they could put up a way worse lineup than they did on Sunday. So at least they have some of their better bats in there. But overall, love the Phillies. Don't love the Pirates. Wheeler's definitely a solid option. But again, I'm trying to flip the build a little bit. So I'll have exposure to Wheeler, but you're not going to see him as someone I'm like, going all in on or coring up today.
I mean, the truth of the matter is most of the best hitters in the game are on this slate and in really good spots, right?
Yeah.
Like Acuna, Witt, Judge, Trout, Harper, Schwarber, Henderson, good catchers, Rushman. Like it's Ellie De La Cruz. Like it's and we know that the 2 most expensive pitchers are going to be chalky. So I'm with you. I like Wheeler and I like Burns. But I also really, really like a lot of these big hitters. And yeah, I say it on the show a lot. I know most people start their builds with pitchers. To me, it's offense that wins GPPs most of the time, unless the pitcher, pops off for 40. You don't do that very often. I think you're going to need a couple guys with double dongs in your lineup, or I think the winning lineup will have that at the end of the slate today. So don't overlook these big bats for the big pitchers. Not saying you need to fade Wheeler or anything like that, but we will see a lot of offense today, no question about it. Any interest in Pittsburgh bats? I think I'm just crossing them off against Wheeler. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things I scan, and if I ever see like a lot of Pittsburgh, I go, let me like see if I should fix that or how is it. If I had an O'Neill Cruz one-off, would I say no? Probably not at 5%, but it's getting ridiculous here. It doesn't matter. We can move on to the next game. Just Pirates, you don't want to be super exposed to.
Yeah, I'll leave Cruz in the pool, but I don't want a lot of Pittsburgh today. That's for sure. Colorado and Toronto up next. This one in Toronto, of course. We've got Jose Barrios on the bump for Toronto. He's been pretty solid so far on the young season. He'll go up against this terrible Rockies lineup, who can only hit the dusty Kevin Gausman. I think Barrios can have more success than Gausman did the other day. And then Kyle Freeland pitching for Colorado has 3 outings on the season and is averaging, Mangone, negative 7.1 DraftKings points per game, has an ERA of 16.03, has managed to strike out a total of 6 batters in 3 starts. Now, of course, one of those starts was in Coors Field. It's Arizona twice, Chicago Cubs once, tough offenses. But, Freeland, not great. And I think you're going to see a lot of people go to Toronto Blue Jays. I get it, but I still don't like them as much as the Orioles, obviously. I like the Phillies better, too, and I think a lot of people are going to go to the Blue Jays. Again, if you're on the Blue Jays, I'm not trying to talk you off of them. They're obviously in a good spot here. I just like a couple of other teams a little bit better, especially when you take into account ownership. And then, I like Barrios here. He feels very, very safe to me at 8,100. I think he's even in the conversation at 9,600 on FanDuel. I know that feels like a big price tag, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Barrios go 6-7 strong innings and maybe even end up as the overall SP1. I think he's got a chance to do that. Again, Wheeler Burns, the favorites over him to do that, but I do like Barrios here. He feels very safe. He does provide some savings, and I'm not really playing any of these Rockies bats. Where do you stand on Rockies and Blue Jays?
Yeah, not playing Rockies bats. I do think Barrios is a good play. He's kind of cheap on DraftKings too, right? You get him at 8-1. That's kind of a nice tag for sure. The Blue Jays offense. So let's talk about them a little bit. Let me touch on FanDuel.
Let me tell you, did you go antiquing yesterday, Mangone? Did you find a nice chair there?
No, it's so I've been, my other chair is like kind of a little messed up, and since I have I'm in a walking boot and stuff, and it's super annoying. I just went downstairs and grabbed one of these chairs that was in the corner. So it's like this old crappy chair.
Well,
but
you can sweat out the games with King Arthur after once they get started.
Yeah, we'll have a nice little lunch together right around the table. But it just made my life easier and way more comfortable. Even the chair just I have is broken, and I'm not buying a new one. But it's a good comment for sure there. I did want to talk about Toronto and a little bit with it. So FanDuel, their prices are really good. Justin Turner's 3,300, Springer's 32, Vladimir Guerrero's 3,500, even Bo Bichette's 3,200. Now, I'm in agreement with you, DC. I think it's a tough spot. It's definitely a hold your nose to fade the Blue Jays. I'm not saying I'm going to fade them. What I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to get lower on their stack. One thing I might do, and I did it yesterday, and it worked out pretty well for me, was I just X'd the Blue Jays stacks. I didn't X the Blue Jays. I X'd the stacks, which meant I still had one-offs thrown throughout my lineup, which I don't disagree with considering one-offs here to still kind of get exposure to the good bats. And that means I got the Dalton Varsho grand slam yesterday, right, as a one-off on teams. And I think that's how I'm going to play it today. I don't know for certain because I want to run it when we get off the show and stuff. But that's something I did yesterday that worked out really, really well for me. And I think I'm going to do it again just because I don't want to not play these bats because I think Kyle Freeland could definitely get some home runs hit on him. But I just don't want to be invested in the chalk stack where I'm fine with it in one-offs, but not the full 5-man, just because I think the field is trying to go way too overweight on it, for one. And two, there are really, really good offenses. And to our guy Uncle T's point, the bottom of the half of the Blue Jays lineup is kind of cheeks where it could definitely slow down the momentum of that team. And I still want to be able to get exposure to these good bats at good prices like Schneider, Turner, Springer, Guerrero, Bichette. Those guys are definitely strong plays for sure today.
Yeah, for me, it's just, Do you feel better about Gunnar Henderson or Bo Bichette? For me, that answer is Gunnar Henderson. You know, like Colton Cowser or Justin Turner. I'll take the Cowser side. You know, it's just questions like that. I'm kind of obviously keep talking about Baltimore, but that's where I stand on it. Of course, people are going to stack the Blue Jays, and I'll have some exposure to the Blue Jays as well, but I'll definitely be under the field. Did you talk about Barrios? I was kind of reading the chat there.
Yeah, I just said like 8,100 is kind of too cheap, right? Like that's a really good price against the Rockies. And we talked about flipping the build when you have Wheeler at 9.9 and Burns at 9.7. And I know it's only like a $2,000 difference, but that's not nothing when you're trying to jam in these really, really short.
So sign me up for the 18 to 20 spot from Barrios, right? I'll take that for 8,100.
Agreed. If Wheeler somehow drops 35, I'll take my L and move on to the next slate. You know what I mean? Like it just
even then. I mean, if the bats that you get in on the savings, like you could still overcome that. So yeah, correct. in on Barrios for sure. Mr. Grapefruit is Ashcraft and Tyler Anderson too chalky of pitcher selections. If 4% combined ownership is too chalky, then yes. Otherwise, I think you'll be pretty good on the ownership on Ashcraft and Mr. Anderson there. Let's get to New York and Cleveland next. Another game that should see some power. We've got 75 to 80 degrees in Cleveland. Winds blowing out to right field, which is where kind of what you want. That's where the majority of home runs go. In Cleveland, it's a park that definitely favors fly balls out to right field. 40% humidity. I mean, it's awesome hitting weather in Cleveland. We've got two lefties on the hill, kind of unfortunately, Logan Allen and Nestor Cortez. Not guys that I necessarily love picking on in general. So yeah, this game, I mean, I think I like the Yankee side a little bit better with all the power against the lefty Logan Allen. Not playing either of these pitchers. They're completely off the table, both of them for me. I'll just throw it over to you, Mangone. What do you see? Guardians and Yankees.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those catch me up games. Like I don't see myself getting in much in this game. Like sure, like the Judge one-offs, even Soto, Stan. I mean, yeah, I'm in on that. Guardian side, I really don't like. It's definitely going to be more like mini stacks or one-offs with the Yankees. And yes, the wind's blowing out, but it's definitely not a game I want to be like overexposed to. Again, a lot of good games in this slate. We talked about some good offenses like Baltimore and Philadelphia and other ones. I just don't think this is a game I'm going to be super excited about, mainly looking at some of these like bats that have power on the Yankees side of the ball.
Yeah, Logan Allen been pretty tough on lefties. I do think the righties for the Yankees, like Aaron Judge, Stanton, I think you want exposure to those guys. Volpe at the top. I like the Yankees quite a bit here. Less so on Cleveland, even though I do love the weather here, the hitting weather in Cleveland. But let's move to Minnesota and Detroit. I think we kind of get to one of our first interesting, pitching games. We have Jack Flaherty, who's been pretty good for Detroit. He did have that hiccup against Oakland when he was massive chalk last time out, but looked good in his first start. I do think the strikeouts are going to be there for him, and this is a good matchup against this Twins team. Lost Carlos Correa, no Byron Buxton in the lineup today. Could see Flaherty having a bounce back after disappointing his chalk last time out, and then Bailey Ober. Talk about a price adjustment all the way down to 6,600. I obviously have that -17 against Kansas City. By the way, Kansas City, don't pick on that team right now. They're a little bit of a wagon themselves, but bounced back with a good outing against the Dodgers of all teams. So he's had two really tough matchups. Gets the opposite of that today. Good matchup for sure against Detroit. This is another game where it's going to play very hitter friendly in terms of the weather. But it is a pretty good park to pitch in general in Detroit. A big park as well. Tough to hit home runs, which is good for Bailey Ober. I mean, 6,600 for Ober against the Tigers, Mangone. It's just way too cheap. I think there's just no way around it. I like Flaherty too at 8,400. Where do you stand on Tigers and Twins?
Yeah, we are arm in arm a lot on this slate. We're arm in arm here again. Like over 6,600 is too cheap, right? I mean, yes, everyone wants to see the -17. Was worried. Then he went out. The Dodgers was perfectly fine. We know Bailey Ober. He can be very up and down. If his control is just not there, it's going to be a disaster if he can out it. But if it's there, it's going to work out well. And against the Tigers, obviously good probability going against a team like the Tigers. I like him at 6,600 100. We like some expensive bats. We got to play Bailey Ober. It's just simple math equation. Jack Flaherty is the interesting one. So everyone saw what happened to him on Oakland. He was super chalk and busted. I'm okay to go back to him. I think also ownership, because all the ownership right now is on Burns and Wheeler. People are not going to get the Flaherty as much. Now, will Flaherty get some ownership? Yeah, I think he'll get some. But people don't love attacking the Twins because they love their power bats. But honestly, I think this Twins team can be a disaster at times. And I think people forget that too much. And dude, they're like, look at the lineup. Yeah, the 1 through 3 looks fine. Manny Margot's in the 4 hole with Willie Castro, and then I don't know what Austin Martin is, but it's just, this is not a good Twins lineup today. Jack Flaherty is definitely going to be a pitcher that I'm well overweight on. I want to take a chance on it. I know what this guy's upside is. He sounds like a pitcher that, when we talked about last week, that you wanted to invest in. And even early in the season, you're like, I want to invest in this guy. We got to keep investing in him. Don't ignore what happened last week. Keep moving on. We're going to get a little bit of an ownership discount because of what happened last week. If he put up 25 against Oakland, he would be chalk today. It's just plain and simple, but he's not. I want to play Jack Flaherty for sure.
Yeah, Twins and Tigers played a doubleheader yesterday, so their bullpens kind of got burned through a little bit, which obviously would be good for the offenses. But I think the point I'm trying to make, I do think both the Tigers and the Twins are going to ask Ober and Flaherty to go deep into this game. I know Ober only threw.
Let me say this. JT always says this too. I wonder if you don't agree with this on DC. When you play the doubleheader, the bats are a little bit tired the next day, right? Because they played all day, 2 games, and that's why the lineups water down too. And you might not have guys that pinch hit that could be better bats. It just seems like a really good spot to attack these pitchers here.
Yep, in on both Ober and Flaherty. I know Ober is weirdly only threw 53 pitches in that first outing against Kansas City, and then just 68 against the Dodgers. I don't really think he's actually that limited, though. I think those were just kind of extenuating circumstances. And I do think Ober is certainly capable of giving you 6 strong innings in this start. In fact, I would be kind of surprised if he didn't get through at least 5. I think 6 is a pretty reasonable projection for Bailey Ober. Although a bunch of shares of him, just too cheap, in my opinion, on DraftKings at 6,600. We'll keep it moving. San Francisco and Tampa Bay up next. We've got bullpen game for Tampa Bay. Sean Alexander is scheduled to pitch the first inning, or inning or 2, I guess. And then, Tyler Alexander will come in. You don't want to play any Tampa pitchers. Blake Snell will make his second start for San Francisco. First one did not go especially well. Only made it through 3 innings against the Nationals. Did get 5 strikeouts. Pitched through 72 pitches in that one. Think you can probably put Snell in the low to mid 80s in terms of pitch count. 9,500 feels kind of like a lot for a pitcher who didn't pitch super well, missed all spring training, has something of a pitch count. It is a good matchup. This Rays lineup has a ton of strikeouts in it. But I don't know. I'm not super sold on Snell at 9,500. Don't love the offenses in this game either. Kind of a little bit of a catch-up game for me. Where do you stand on Rays and Giants?
Agreed. No Rays. Giants, like, if you played a Soler or a Chapman one-off, would I care? No, I don't think it's the worst idea. But I don't like attacking bullpen games. So agree on the catch-up game. And with Blake Snell, you can make the argument, like, well, isn't he a contrarian pivot that'll have no ownership with Wheeler and Burns up top? Yes, but my counter argument would be, I don't like that strategy because you're going to kind of build similar lineups with your bats. When I would rather get cheaper with my pitchers, like we've talked about, go to these guys like Flaherty and Ober and a bunch of other options and ones that are coming up. I'd rather go cheaper with my pitcher and spend on bats. I just like flipping the construction way more than that contrarian Snell pivot. So none of this game for me.
Yeah, I don't know if this will end up being true for sure, but Saber does have Snell as very chalky, which, I mean,
that seems crazy.
They're kind of listed at 38%. I'm like refreshing and trying to figure out if I'm got it right, but I don't think he's going to be anywhere near that high. If he is, I don't want anything to do with Snell. I mean, anything over like 20%, I think is too high. So out on Blake Snell, out on Rays and Giants in general. Let's get to the next game on the slate, Atlanta and Miami. It is Charlie Morton and Jesus Luzardo pitching for the Marlins. Luzardo got bombed last time out, 700 runs against the Yankees, gave up 2 home runs. Kind of talked about this Marlins squad struggling a little bit, although they've been better against the Braves. Braves did disappointing so far against this Marlins pitching staff. We'll see if they can get it going against Luzardo. Morton, we know who Charlie Morton is at this point. High strikeout guy, but also can lose. Complete command, 5 walks. We saw it last time out against the Mets. Some upside. I don't think he's a terrible play against this Miami offense, which is one to target with opposing starting pitchers for sure. I'll have, 10% Morton or something. No Luzardo for me against the Braves. But I'm not crazy about the bats here either, which is rare for me to say about the Braves, which probably means they're putting up 13 runs against Luzardo. Where do you stand on Marlins and Braves?
Yeah, this game's hard. Like, I'm not super. Obviously, I don't want to attack Luzardo, and I don't really want to play Luzardo. My question to you is, what would Luzardo's price be that you'd have to play him? Like, my problem is the price is like it's too high, right? 8,700. Like, if he was Bailey Over's price, would you play Luzardo in tournaments, DC, or not even a chance?
At 6,600, yeah, I would play him. So
yeah, okay. I was just curious. I thought it's a fun conversation. So, but and of course, like, if you want to play the Braves, I don't think you're going to get them at low ownership today. Like, if you are someone that just says, whenever the Braves are absolutely low owned, give me the Braves and I play them every time, I wouldn't argue against it. And if I run my stuff and I see I have a couple Brave stacks, am I going to blow up my builds and say, don't do that? No, I'm not going to. But this isn't a team I'm absolutely going my way to prioritize. So there's other bats I like. We've already talked about them. There's more coming up. So I think for the most part, this game's a fade. Even Morton, I don't love in this spot.
Yeah. It says other ownership projections at Snell less than 10%. I mean, that's what I was kind of thinking, and that's what I think it should be. Yeah. I would definitely.
Saber's catching up, right? It's early, so Saber will adjust it.
Yeah, I don't think Saber's projection on Snell is going to prove true, but it is what it says right now. So there you go. Don't shoot the messenger. There you go. KC and the New York Mets up next. Talked about this Royals team. They look good recently. This is another game. Looks pretty damn good in terms of hitting environment. It's obviously not the best park for hitting in the world at Citi Field in New York, but 65, 70 degrees, wind blowing out to left center field. We've got Jose Butto. I don't even know. Butto. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He does suck, though. I do know that much about Mr. Butto. He's cheeks, I think, is a good way to describe him, given his name. Allows a ton of walks, which I like stacking against that. And I like this Royals offense, man, especially the top 5 look good to me against Jose. And then we got Cole Reagans pitching for the Royals, another one of my kind of favorite young pitchers. He's been good through 2 starts. He's had tough matchups. Baltimore and Houston in the last 2, has thrown over 90 pitches in all 3 of his starts. This matchup against the Mets is okay. They've got a pretty low strikeout rate against left-handed pitchers, which concerns me a little bit. But I think Reagan's at 8,300. It's a nice price tag for him. So I do like me some Cole Reagans. I'm in on this Kansas City offense. Where do you stand on Mets and Royals?
Yeah, I definitely don't mind Reagans. I think I like some of the guys we've talked about in like the last couple games pitching-wise a little bit more than Reagans, but Reagans is definitely in the pool. I want to make sure I'm overweight on him. And I want to be overweight on this Kansas City Royals offense. They're definitely an offense that I think is worth getting exposure to. You brought up a lot of good reasons why. Price tag is obviously up on someone like Bobby Witt. One thing I think you have to be a little bit careful of when you run your teams MME-wise, like if you're seeing you're getting 25% Royals stacks, just check how much Bobby Witt you have, because you might be mad if Bobby Witt has like a big game and you don't have him. Because I've noticed with Royal stacks, like because these guys are so cheap, it really wants to jam in the values more than Bobby Witt Jr. So just that's something to monitor. When you build your teams, if the Royals are a priority, just make sure you're getting enough Bobby Witt. That's all I'm going to say, because I've noticed it for sure when I run stuff. Sometimes give me enough of it.
I mention it every time in the show, but Bobby Witt is absolutely locked in right now. Obviously, he can run, but it's the bat that's looked better. Yeah. Leads all baseball in average exit velocity at 98.3 miles per hour. leads all of baseball in hard hit percentage at 68%, leads all of baseball in barrels with 23.4% barrel percentage for Mr. Bobby Witt. He's got the legs, and that $6,400 price tag is absolutely justified. So I'm with you. I mean, if you're playing Royals, got to get Bobby Witt in there, and I think he's even a good one-off play. But I'm absolutely in on the Royals.
I just know, like, if you run it, because and this goes to Josh's question, who are the quad condom no HIV for me for pitchers and hitters? Well, the pitchers are Wheeler and Burns, and if you just run projections, if you get Wheeler and Burns, well, look at the Royals lineup. What is it going to give you? Probably Vinny P at 4.3K, MJ Melendez at 4K, Vasquez at 3.8. Then you got an Adam Frazier at 2.9. Like, it's going to mix and match these guys throughout your lineups that are just values. And so just make sure, if you like the Royals today, which I do, when you run it, one guy to look at is how much of Bobby Witt do I have? Like, when I play Astros, I go, how much Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez do I have? If I only have 10% of each, but I have a ton of the stacks, well, that's a problem. And I need to figure out how am I going to fix that. And that happens when you play these slates that have really high up pitchers and then have a lot of bats we want to get to, especially if you go and start manually changing your projections, because if you change the values a little too high, it's going to force those guys in there. So it's just something that I think is super important that I've noticed in the lineup building process that I'm trying to make sure that you guys understand. But so yeah, overall, love the Royals. Don't like the Mets. Reagans is a good pitcher, but he's not like on my top tier list. He's definitely one I'll be overweight on.
Yeah, and I'm with McNair. We need to get rid of that hockey background. Get something else going on, man.
I agree. I gotta change something soon with the background.
Next show I'm on with you. I better see a different background up there. Thank you, Brandon McNair.
Maybe it'll be an octagon back there, DC. Maybe I'll have to get an octagon in there for you.
That works. You can haunt my dreams with a screenshot of the Callaway or the Holloway buzzer beating KO. Let's go to the next game on the slate. What do we have? 2 more to talk about. Then we'll do stacks, pitchers, dong calls, all that good stuff. Get on out of here and build the lineups. But first, we will talk about Cincinnati and the Chicago White Sox. 9 total in this one. Reds favored -150. Haven't seen the lineups here. Oh yeah, they're up. Pretty much as expected as from both teams. And I saw a comment earlier in the chat. It's like we don't need to wait for the White Sox lineup. It'll be trash, and that is true. It's difficult, Mangone, to put out a good lineup when you don't have any good hitters to put in it. So yeah, I mean this White Sox lineup is absolutely terrible. I kind of like Graham Ashcraft a little bit here. I know he was mentioned earlier in the chat. He's looked pretty good through 2 starts. He did kind of fall apart against that Milwaukee team late, but he's always been an interesting pitcher to me. You know, he's throwing 98, 99 at times, like good stuff. And the swing and strike rate, which has always been a problem for him, has been up through 2 starts against Milwaukee and Philadelphia. 2 pretty tough matchups. I mean, we talked about Milwaukee, how good they've been against righties so far this year. Philadelphia obviously has a strong lineup. And I mean, sign me up for just about anybody right now against this White Sox team. Ashcraft, 7,700 on DraftKings. He is 9,100 on FanDuel. FanDuel giving no discounts, man, on these kind of interesting pitchers. They're trying to force you to play Burns and Wheeler a little bit. But yeah, I do like Ashcraft today, especially on DraftKings, obviously. And then you got to like the Reds too. I mean, Mike Soroka is just doesn't have it. Good hitting weather in Chicago. And yeah, our man, Ellie De La Cruz, another guy that you just want exposure to this guy almost every time he's facing a righty, especially Mangone. Cruz is one of the guys, like, he has one weakness in his game. He strikes out too much. Not a problem against Soroka, who has like a 7% strikeout rate, right? So anytime you can be pretty sure that Cruz is going to be able to make contact, he's someone that you want in your lineup. He's one of the best one-offs on this slate, even if you're not stacking the Reds. But I do think you should be generally in on the Reds. Will Benson, another one of my favorite plays on the slate. Love the Reds. No White Sox for me. That's going to be a theme, I think, most of this year, frankly. I know you're somewhat of a White Sox guy, but It's hard to be a White Sox guy at this point in time, man. Going, where do you stand? Ashcraft, Soroka, White Sox, and Reds.
Yeah, I quit that drug last year. It's just it's not worth it.
Good to get rid of a vice. The White Sox are one of them. So
yeah, and they don't even have my boy. Like the one guy I would definitely struggle with is Luis Robert, as I like to call him. Mr. Robert is out, so it doesn't even matter. So this Reds offense I really like too. So the Reds offense goes with the same exact theme I was talking about. For one, let me mention FanDuel, they're very cheap. You're going to get a lot of explosion room there. Great plays over there, but DK, they won't pop as much. And the reason why is Jonathan India, he's 4,300. Will Benson, 4K. Christian Encarnacion Strand is 4.2. Steer is 5.5. Fraley at 4.4. Ellie De La Cruz is 5.6. Candelario 4.1. My guy Martini is 3.7. And Stevenson's 3.8. Like, there's no value amongst the lineup. This goes to the same theme I said. There are certain offenses that are pricey today that I want to make sure I'm overweight on, and that's going to require me to play cheaper pitching rather than play the Wheeler and Burns combination as much. Doesn't mean I won't have Wheeler with like maybe a Bailey Over or a Burns with a Flaherty, but I probably won't have that double combo combination that we talked about on a lot of my teams because I want to prioritize bats. And this Reds team will be one of them. Wind is blowing out. It's in Chicago. It's 75 degrees. I mean, Steve Boynton is enjoying his summer in Chicago right now. He's getting that beautiful tasty weather early. So we got to really, really like this game. But we like the Cincinnati Red side. Don't really like the White Sox. And basically any pitcher against the White Sox, I think, should be in the conversation right now. And I'll take chances on Graham Ashcraft if I have to at 7-7. I think there's way better plays like Flaherty and Reagan's for a little bit more. But if I see I got like 5 to 10% Ashcraft, I'm not going to say no because of how bad this White Sox team is.
What does Boynton enjoy more, the Chicago summer or Zach Edey?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. It's probably going to be the Chicago summers just because he's got all cold winters to look forward to him, right? But who knows? We'll see. Zach Edey, he might become an NBA fan because of Zach Edey now if he makes the league.
There's no way Boynton's up early watching this show. He's probably sleeping one off, so we can get Boynton with some strays.
Yeah, Sunday mornings is the best time to give Boynton strays.
Yeah, we're safe. You can't fire back. I love picking on people when they can't come back at me. So yeah, in on the Reds, no White Sox, and I do like some Graham Ashcraft to wrap that game up. Final game on the slate, it is Houston Astros, Texas Rangers. Two righties on the hill, Christian Javier, Nathan Eovaldi, who both have looked pretty damn solid this year. Two good pitchers, two good offenses too, certainly in the Rangers and the Astros. And it's kind of like good pitchers, good offense, decent hitting environment. Probably not going to end up with a ton of this game either way. Myself, of course, there's enough good hitters in here. If you want to sprinkle these guys in, I don't think that's a bad move at all. I think I slightly prefer the Rangers side of this one. But yeah, I won't have a ton of exposure here. What about you, Texas and Houston?
Yeah, same agreements. Like Houston, I doubt I'll get to. I don't want to stack against Eovaldi, especially on this slate. I don't need to play Eovaldi at 9-3. And then I don't mind the Rangers, but I'm not dying to stack against Javier. Here's a pretty good question. I probably know the answer, but I figured I'll ask it, DC. If I told you you're only playing one lineup, there's only 3 offenses you could pick between. Those offenses are the Rangers, the Yankees, and the Braves. Which ones would you play today in their, pitching matchups?
What was the question? This comment got me going. Imagine Zach Edey in the Chicago summer with a bucket of high noons. That's like Boynton's wet dream right there.
That is Boynton's wet dream. The question was 3 offenses you can pick. I give you $15 to join that big $15 trade. You can only play one of these offenses. The offenses are the Braves against Luzardo, the Yankees against Logan Allen with that wind blowing out, or the Rangers against Christian Javier. Which one would you pick?
Yankees.
That was my lean too, but I figured it was like all those team totals were close and their offenses that all have some like holes in them today based on some pitching matchups. But yeah, I agree. It'd probably be the Yankees.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are terrible options. But yeah, Texas, Houston, I think if you want to kind of avoid that game, if you're playing a few lineups, I think that's not a terrible way to go. Eovaldi has looked really good through a couple starts, especially. Yeah, Wheeler or Burns. I thought it was close coming into the day, but Milwaukee's lineup that they put out does have me leaning fairly strongly to the Burns side. John Beeman stacking Philly today. Certainly agree with that. Also, Seager has 3 home runs, he says, off of Javier. Makes sense. Javier is a fastball heavy guy. He does give up a lot of fly balls, and we know what Seager can obviously do some damage. So don't mind that Seager call at all. Shortstop loaded today, though. Seager, Ellie De La Cruz, Bobby Witt, Gunnar Henderson, right? The list goes on at shortstop. So obviously you can only play one of those guys in each lineup. All right, man, let's get to stacks. Let's do favorite overall stack and favorite contrarian stack. I will go first. No surprise if you've been listening to the show. Orioles, number 1 for me with the bullet. I will have a ton of Orioles today. Contrarian stack, I don't know how contrarian they're going to be, but I do like the Yankees quite a bit against Logan Allen in that good hitting conditions in Cleveland. What about you, man? Favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack?
Yeah. I think the Phillies I think they're both. Are the Phillies contrarian? I think they're my favorite stack though, for sure today. So Phillies are they're my number 1 stack. I'll give another contrarian one, and I'll go with the Cincinnati Reds. I still think, on the surface, it sounds like people would play the Reds, but dude, their prices are so high. People were we were talking about the bats early on, and because everyone wants to play Wheeler and Burns, they're playing that Red Sox and Angels game. And you just don't have the money to play the Reds. And people, if you do spend, you want to go to these other offenses. So number 1 offense for me is the Phillies. And then, Reds are my contrarian one. I do agree, though. I like Baltimore like you. I just didn't. You've already given them enough love, so I didn't feel like I should mention them.
Yeah, Orioles going to be a wagon for us. Evaldi at 5% ownership. I think that's fine. I'll probably keep him in my pool. Probably come in somewhere around 5% on Evaldi.
Yeah. I want to say, Jason, this is the argument that me and DC talked about a little bit earlier, more so me. And I don't love doing the Evaldi thing. And the reason why, Jason, is because I want to go cheaper with my pitching with the Bailey Overs and the Flahertys and Reagans, because we want our bats, right? If you're playing the Orioles and you're loading up on Gunnar Henderson and these guys, well, you don't have the money. So I think the best way to get off of Wheeler and Burns is go cheaper with your pitching. And DC, I think you agree. You like the cheaper pitching route rather than the contrarian pivots up top, right?
Yes, correct. Josh asked favorite lower dollar pitcher to pair with Mr. Burns. To me, Ober is clearly the best cheap pitcher. I also think Ober is the best point per dollar pitcher on the entire slate, even over Burns. Not raw projection, but point per dollar. I would draft Ober number 1 on this entire slate myself. Let's do pitchers next. Obviously, kind of already answered that. Pitcher you'll be most overweight on to the field. Obviously, we don't know ownerships exactly where they will pan out, but Saber has Ober around 12-13%. If that's true, it'll be Bailey Ober for me. I'll have way more than that 12-13% number. Probably, I don't know, I'm probably playing 30-40% Ober on DraftKings. I think sounds good on the slate to me. What about you, man? Most important pitcher today?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Jack Flaherty. I really like Flaherty in this spot. He is someone, when we get off the show, I'm definitely going to up his projection, no doubt. And then someone said the Reds are going to be the highest owned offense. I'm telling you, there's no chance. Maybe on FanDuel, at those price tags, there's just no chance those guys are the highest owned on the slate. It's going to be impossible because their prices are just too expensive. Maybe the Bensons and the Strand and Encarnaciones, but Ellie De La Cruz in the 6 hole, people are not paying for him at 5,600. They're just not.
People overrate batting position so much. If Cruz was in the 2 hole today, his ownership would double. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
No doubt. People overrate it where they want that 1 through 5 look. And that's why everyone's going to play those Blue Jays, right? People are
I was glad to see Kowser down in the 6 hole because I'd get half the ownership than if he was hitting second today. You gave your pitcher?
Yeah, Jack Flaherty. One thing I'll say is I don't think I have a core on the site, but if I was giving out a core, Ober and Flaherty would be a really nice one. Same pitchers in the same game. That can sometimes always correlate pretty well. And I think that's a really interesting one.
All right, let's do a home run call. I'll go back to a guy I just mentioned. down in that 6 hole. He's expensive, but he is up against Mike Soroka. Ellie De La Cruz nukes one off of Soroka or that terrible White Sox bullpen. Give us a home run call, maybe a one-off type of guy.
Yeah, we're going with Bryce Harper. I know he's expensive, but we want expensive bats today. We talked about it. So give me Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm excited to roster them today for sure.
That could come through. I will say I might open up my Sabre builds a little bit. I could see some weird bunch of one-offs just absolutely crushing on this slate. There seems to be some, like, this home run call. I mean, you could have listed what, like 30 guys?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. If I was you, if you do that, like, maybe make it just like limiting your, like, you don't have to do 5 bands. Like, maybe do 4 bands, right? Where it's like,
I think I'm going to allow 3-3-2s today is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, one thing when I would say with Sabre too is like some slates I like looking at it to see, and like also if you go the cheap pitching route, maybe it does open that up a little bit more than you'd think. So yeah, definitely, I don't hate the idea.
All right, let's do overall play of the day. We'll get on out of here. I haven't mentioned it yet. Over an hour show here. Hit the like button if you are watching the show here on Sunday morning. We're up early. We're grinding for you guys. Hit that like button. It's really all we ask. And, of course, if you do want to sign up over at Run Pure Sports, you can use promo code DC15 for 15% off weekly or monthly payment. All right, Mangone, overall play of the day. Give it to us.
Overall play of the day. Before that, I do want to address the chat question real quick. King of Smack said, what if pitching is what you need and you may take some KC bats and SF bats? So if you want to do the expensive guys, I get it. Like if you want to go that route,
we're not saying Burns and Wheeler are bad plays. We just like a slightly different build today, a little bit better.
Yeah, and like I'm sure I'll have teams that go Corbin Burns with Bailey over, right? But like what I'm saying is I just don't love the double pitching spend up because I want these bats that we're talking about. There's expensive guys that I want to get exposure to for sure. But yeah, overall play, I did like Harper. I probably won't say him. We'll go with I might be stealing your guy, but that's okay. We're gonna overall play. We'll go with actually I won't steal your guy. We'll go with Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. is a really good play. I talked about wanting to make sure you get him. Like the King of Smack just talked about it. What if you want those cheap Royals? If you play Wheeler and you play Burns, you're not getting Bobby Witt Jr. And if they put up 10 runs, I'm sorry, I want Bobby Witt Jr. So we'll go with him as the overall play of the day.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Snow here. I think we'll see the winner on the flagship on DraftKings have 2 double dongs in their lineup at the end of the slate. My overall play on the day, Colton Cowser. Was that who you were thinking about swiping from me, Mangone?
I thought you were going to say Gunnar Henderson. So, yeah, it was close, but not Cowser.
You knew it was going to be an Oriole, but I will go with Mr. Cowser down there in the 6L 3,500. Absolutely smashing right now from the left side, stealing bases as well. I think he is maybe the best point per dollar play from a bats perspective on this slate. So I'll go with Mr. Colton Cowser, the Melt Man for the Orioles. That'll do it for this show. We appreciate you guys joining us here on Sunday morning. We still got, an hour and 25 minutes before lock to get those lineups in. Discord will be popping, answering questions. And, I think we're going to see some RPS logos at the top of the tournaments today. The show will be back, of course, at the normal time, 4:45 Eastern time on Monday. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody. We appreciate you watching as always. For Mangone, I'm Draft Cheat. We're out of here.